So change of location today. Here we are at home, and I'm just making a few latex molds, and we'll have a quick look at what happens. So most of these are actually nearly ready. I probably should have started a couple of videos on how to do it from scratch. And basically here we have a large skull near enough to life size. What I basically have done is we just paint latex on over the original skull model. Now I'm using this very cheap brush, and the reason it's a cheap brush is because it's going to be wrecked. The latex is almost impossible to remove from paintbrushes, so it's not worth keeping them. But if you want to know how to keep the latex wet and keep the brush wet, is what I've done. It looks absolutely terrible. This is a saucepan, a pot, and I've covered it over with cling film to keep the latex from drying out. Now it's drying out a little bit, but this will do now. I've been doing this skull for approximately a week and a bit. It's because I'm not making a mother mold for it. It's going to need a lot of rubber, a lot of latex painted on, so it can support the weight of the concrete when it's poured in. So we just paint that on everywhere. And it's very important, especially with a mold that's going to take a lot of heavy concrete or whatever, is to do a very big flange around it. So this is the flange. This is going to support the mold when it's sitting in a. This is probably going to. What I'm probably going to do is I'm going to cut a hole around the base. Draw a line around the base, and then I'm going to cut a hole in a piece of wood and suspend it upside down in a bucket. Here's what I made earlier, as we used to say. So as you can see there, now I think this probably could have benefited from a little bit more latex being painted onto it. Like a little bit. It didn't, it's fine. If it stands up by itself, it's okay. So what I mean is, what we're going to do is trace the outline here in a piece of wood, cut a hole out, and then we're going to suspend the mold like this into a bucket, on the wood into a bucket. So it holds the weight of the, in this case, concrete or Herculite or plaster or whatever you're going to use. So there's one that's almost ready to be finished, or almost ready to remove. The skull is under there. Skull. This is the flange. You can see now it's not even as such, but it's very thick around the edges here. We've got like maybe a centimeter of solid latex around there, so that's going to be very important to support the mold when it's full of concrete. Okay, so what I'm doing is, you can see the difference in the color. This is white. This is dark, almost brown. This is when the latex cures. It changes color. When it cures, it becomes tough and it doesn't stick to itself. You want it sticking to itself until it's ready to use, and then when it's ready to use, you don't want it sticking to yourself. You can see this, just sticking the paintbrush into the eyes there. Little piggy eyes staring at me. It's okay. So that's another coat. Now, I don't know how many coats this thing has had, because I'm looking for the thickness of it more than counting the coats. It's had at least 20 coats, at least. I want the rubber to be fairly thick. You can see here, this is cured. This is what it looks like. That's the thickness of it there. It's it's thin around the edges. As you come in closer, then you'll see that it's thicker. So I wanted this bit here, you don't want that to be too soft so that it collapses in on itself when you're pouring the object. So this is okay. This is all right. Something just collapsed there. That's great. So this is for sale at the moment. If anybody wants it, it's full-size mold. It should be okay without a mother mold. Like, it's standing up like that's no problem. It doesn't need a mother mold as far as I can see. If you want to make a mother mold, that's fine. Or the best thing to do is to just, like I say, cut a piece of wood or plastic and suspend it like this into a bucket. Okay, so if you're looking for these molds, they're available for sale now. I'm just going to do a little Buddha one here. This one is exactly the opposite. It's tiny. It doesn't really need an awful lot of latex. So this is a little owl. Now what I'm doing here is the mold is ready. The upper part of the mold is ready. I'm just doing the flange here. This is some kind of little Christmas angel thing. Well, I'm just basically making molds out of things. Paint it on nice and thick. The first coat of your object or whatever should always be a thin coat, because this is what has to pick up the detail. After that, you're basically just reinforcing the mold. So that's what I made earlier. You see, it's fine. And this is the owl also that I made earlier. So that's ready to use, and this is ready to use. So I won't be using these because I have my market tomorrow and on Sunday. This is the latex, Polycraft liquid latex. Most of the stuff that I get now is from Polycraft. MBF fiberglass. These are based in Northern Ireland. They deliver to the Republic, so it's mbfg.co.uk. Very reasonable, very cheap, efficient service. It's easily the cheapest for latex and sundry items like that I've been used anyway. This is the latex thickener. I use it. I don't use it all the time, but I use it enough of the time anyway. So just saw the back of the little Buddha there. I was going to give him another dose. Okay, so brush goes back in there. Now, when this is finished, the pot looks like it's a mess. Literally, the latex is going to just peel off the pot because there's nothing there for the latex to stick to. So the pot will be as good as new. Don't worry too much about it. The brush is going to be a write-off, but it got a lot of usage. Now, we have here a whole load of wrapping paper. This is paper that I've actually recycled from work. Tons and tons and tons of it, because I'm wrapping for the fair tomorrow. Just have a quick look at what I've got. A very quick look. So these are all, this is the coldcast copper Medusa head. I have a few of these. Actually, that was the bronze one. This is the copper one. Copper. We made these in a previous video. This is the coldcast bronze Sheila gig. This is the first time I'll be selling these at a fair, so I'm hoping it goes well. It probably will. I don't know. I've made maybe 5-6 of them. These are my tri-scale, Celtic tri-scale amulets. These are on they're on a leather strip. Okay, so I'm hoping I'll be able to sell a couple of these as well. For anybody who doesn't know, the tri-scale is a very important symbol, especially on Neolithic. You find this on Neolithic buildings, especially in Newgrange, famously in Newgrange, which is not a million miles away from where I am now. So this is another coldcast copper Medusa hanging. Got the little hook in the back. These are my little green ladies. These are always a great seller. I've done different finishes. You see that? They all have different finishes. They're all individual. Little cast green man. Green lady in a lighter green with a darker face. These are all going to be wrapped individually in that paper. And I have another layer of them under here, so they have to be wrapped before I travel with them, because they're fairly tough, but they don't like being banged around on top of each other. Even the way they're stored now, I shouldn't really be doing it, but it's okay. So I have lots of green ladies, lots of little green men, and little green men. It took a long time, you know, as a side hustle as such. These take quite a while to make. There's a lot of steps to making these. From the time I get the molds to the time I glaze them and paint them. So it takes time. So I'm hoping that tomorrow, and indeed Sunday, will be a success in terms of the market. Sunday is Halloween. It's actually not, it's the night before Halloween. So Halloween is Monday. So these are just a few of the items that I'll be bringing to the market. Okay. There's our skulls. Like I say, the skull molds, the latex molds are available now. If anybody wants to buy them, drop me a DM or Scary's Rock Art on Instagram or Scary's Rock Art on Etsy. These are all available for sale. The skull here, the skull mold here, €70, and that's free postage. Free postage. So I think that's a pretty good deal. These molds are usually in excess of $100. Then you have to pay for postage as well. Just quickly looking at one of the little coldcast bronze skulls, which are made on chain. Chain is real silver. This is the first year. It's the first time that I've actually I've made coldcast anything. They're really quite cool. Okay, so I have a couple of things to do, and we'll get back later. Cheerio.